Good morning, everybody. We are going to get started. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day once again to join us for another edition of Explore This. I am Chad Myler and the Health Promotion Manager for Life and Work Connections. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships and your health. And my guest today is Dr. David Sbarra. He is a professor out of the Department of Psychology in the College of Science. How are you doing today, Dr. Sbarra?
Good morning. Hello. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Chad?
I can. Two thumbs up.
Great. 2 thumbs up. Hi.
Awesome. And again, I want to remind those who are hopping on, this is a series where I'll sit down with University of Arizona subject matter experts, where we'll talk about the many dimensions of your health and well-being and tips and ideas of how we can work on those things. So we're going to hop right into some questions here. And so, we were talking about relationships, and I know a lot of the work that you've done in this and in your department and your work. I kind of want to just dive into it, especially in the psychology piece of it. What are some, psychological benefits for us with healthy relationships?
Sure. Okay. Well, pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation. And just to contextualize everything a little bit, I'm a professor in the Department of Psychology. I'm also a clinical psychologist, and most all of my work focuses on the intersection of close relationships and health. I spent a lot of time studying, the darker side of these relationships and health, in particular studying divorce and doing a little bit of work related to loneliness and sort of thwarted relationship needs, but also a good amount of stuff studying intact relationships and relationship quality. And, increasingly in the last decade, we've become very aware of the importance of close relationships for human well-being and human health. And, if you just sort of think about it from an everyday perspective, so much of our lives unfold in a relational context, either as, spouse or partners, or with our children, or with our parents as caregivers. And many of our strongest emotions are evoked and provoked in those relationships, including feelings of, warmth, closeness, tenderness, intimacy, as well as feelings of, anger and hostility. So the social context of human health is very, very important for thinking about our overall well-being.
Okay, definitely. So, you talked about that, and what we've looked at and explored on this series is that, health and wellness, there's so many different dimensions. And so we've kind of hit a little bit on that, the psychological aspect of it. Can you talk about maybe some physical benefits to relationships?
Sure. I mean, I think that when you start thinking about physical health in terms of like illness or a disease, or even just sort of wellness and an optimal state of physical well-being, you need to begin to understand how it could be the case that our social world might get under the skin to influence, alter, and change health-relevant physiology. So one pathway that we focus a lot on, and I teach a big undergraduate course here at the university in health psychology, is the experience of psychological stress. And stress is an aversive state, as I suspect many people know of it as an aversive state, certainly, but it's an aversive state when the demands of a situation exceed our resources. And, stress can emerge in all kinds of ways. In the context of close relationships, it's not hard to imagine interpersonal stress interrupting important health behaviors, for example, sleep. So there's a very important pathway that is about social context and relationship satisfaction quality being linked to sleep quality. And sleep quality, of course, I think there's probably no other health behavior, maybe smoking, that is so clearly linked to our health. And there's no single health behavior probably as clearly linked to our positive health as smoking, maybe physical activity and cardiometabolic function, but sleeping is critical. So we try to link the social world to these health behaviors and to these biological pathways that matter. So, for example, very large studies show us now that high quality social relationships are associated with longevity. That is, like when people die, in a manner that is consistent with many other of the health behaviors that we have elevated to such a high status. If you want to look to who is healthy, look to people's close relationships.
Okay, awesome. So it's, it seems as we've talked so far that we've seen all the benefits, in all the different areas. I think what we like to have viewers who are watching this is, well, I guess then what's the how? So how can someone start to cultivate those healthy relationships?
Sure. I mean, that's a very important question, and I'm glad you're pushing on it. I think the most important way to do this is to start holding a mirror up to yourself and ask how you're responding in your relationships. And when we do so, we should be evaluating how well how well we are listening, to what extent we are psychologically available for people in our lives, and to what extent we are responsive to the things that they are telling us. And we know from actually a growing literature on the importance of responsivity, that is, responding to people's bids for social connection in a way that is meaningful, shows that you care. One of the big challenges with the pandemic that we're hearing a lot about, especially for older adults who are increasingly isolated, is the experience of loneliness, and the idea that you are the felt experience of being socially disconnected. And some of the key ideas for like what people should do when it comes to breaking down loneliness is an idea of social prescribing. That is, part of loneliness is focusing on how terrible it is to be on the periphery. How do you get inside and get socially connected is to start doing for others. So the how is to reach out and be more other oriented, because these pernicious sort of psychological characteristics like loneliness get us very self-focused. So reaching out and trying to think about how I can help other people, how I can be involved. And there are so many ways to do so.
Okay, no, that's awesome. I think if any viewers are on here a couple of weeks ago, we had another expert talking about that, incorporating that compassion with others, that definitely that reaching out and helping others is a huge thing. So it kind of sounds very similar there. So when I think about relationships and, with just my own experiences with it, I think communication is a huge thing. So, I mean, it just asks the question right here then, how, when we look at communication, we look at relationships, how can we really start to develop that or improve communication so we have those healthy relationships?
I mean, there are all kinds of ways to answer this, and it depends largely on the given relationship we're looking at. Are we looking at you and your partner? Are we looking at between you and a child or something like that? During my training, I spent a lot of time involved in couples therapy, and I had a supervisor who was the world's leading expert in couples therapy, among the world's leading experts in couple therapy. And he said, you know what nearly every couple who comes in the door says their problem is? Their problem is communication. And this is his voice, I always sort of throw up my hands and say, I've been doing this for 40 years. I have no idea what a communication problem is. Literally, like, it depends on, what we're talking about. There are patterns of interaction that we know of to be corrosive. That is when people are criticized, when they're contemptuous, that look down at their partner, when they're very defensive, or when they're stonewalling and block any bids or influences for change. And these are important characteristics that sort of highlight some of the darker side of communication problems. But I think that one important skill that people can start developing is to sort of get a sense of, in their day-to-day conversations, if we're talking about in their partnership relationship, a couple relationships, like, does the conversation have a good, easy flow? Are you open to influence? Does your partner seem open to the kinds of things that you have to say? And, the stress that we experience and the sort of anger that emerges, that's how we're taking our temperature about relationships. Emotions are information about course corrections that we need. So, there are a lot of ways to look at what a communication issue or problem is. There's no one prescription.
Okay. So there's just so many great tips and ideas that you've shared today. And I really hope that those who are watching, listening will, you know, rewatch this and think about some of these things and start to cultivate those things. And so, Dr. Sbarra, I always ask everyone on here, kind of try to bring it all together, and all the other people that I've interviewed, and focusing in, you know, we've been asking you about what are some things that we can do to focus on, like relationships and how that's going to better our health. But I like to turn the tables a little bit and say, you know, what is something that you are currently doing right now to be focusing on your health or better your health?
Well, I mean, I think I'm doing all of the things that everyone else is trying to do. I mean, I'm trying to eat well. I'm trying to exercise. I do sort of, I'm a zealot for sleep. And in part, this because, I mean, I study it. My research is peripherally involved. I do some sleep stuff. But some of the evidence that I've seen about the importance for sleep and health is as convincing as anything else. That, you know, the thing we should be doing is trying to get the ideal amount of sleep for our own bodies, right? For me, that's probably 7 hours or more. And I really commit to that. And I get upset when I, you know, don't get it. But I also don't get so upset when I don't get it that, you know, I develop, you know, distorted ways of thinking about it. If I don't get 7 hours of sleep, I get 6, 5, maybe even 4. I just roll with the punches and create a sleep debt that allows me to get to bed the next night or the next night. So we have to have a flexible way of thinking about that. And we have a lot of experts on this campus who study insomnia. So that's very important. The one thing I also will say is, in the spirit of the sort of content that you invited me to speak about, I do try to maintain my relationships. I mean, I'm not the best at it. I have, you know, I tend to sort of like check out, but I call my friends. I think about my children, my wife, and, you know, trying to connect deeply in a meaningful way. And the way I try to do that is through my attention, that I try to give the people in my life my undivided attention. And that is very, very hard for me to do. I can't speak for other people, but I just see it as a increasingly rare commodity. So I try to act with intention. I try to set my intentions to be a single tasker, not a multitasker. When I'm with someone, I'm with them. I'm not with them and checking my phone. And when, I'm not the best at it, and I'm not always successful, but that's what I aspire to do. And I think that's very important. It maybe the like single most important thing we can do. Actually, I have one other idea. Here's the other idea. I was thinking about this recently. If you want to make relationships work well, cultivate our relationships, the thing we should do is at least double, but probably triple what our part is. Right? So we divide chores and responsibilities in relationships, and we often feel like, oh, I'm doing enough. I'm doing my part. That, I think most of the time, that's false. We should do double what we think we should do. We should, you know, buy more flowers. We should clean the house even more. We should do the dishes more nights of the week. We should be better lovers, be closer. Double it, and then you'll probably be right in the right area.
Awesome. I love that. I love that tip. I'm also glad to see I'm not the only one who has to roll with the punches when I don't get those 7 hours of my sleep. So a lot of great tips there, you know. And again, I want to just thank all those who took the time out of their day to listen to us. And most importantly, thank you, Dr. Sbarra, for taking some time out and sharing these wonderful tips and ideas here. And again, thank you, everybody. If you want to stay in touch with what we're doing, we dropped our email list in the chat and our website. You can hop on, see more what we're doing, watch this recording later. And I hope everybody has a happy and healthy Wednesday. And again, thank you, Dr. Sbarra. And
very good.
Be well, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.